All right, I hope I'm going to get kicked off.
I have 5 o'clock, Dr. Hart. Are we ready?
We're ready, Ms. Shin. Thank you.
Okay. We're going to call the meeting to order. The meeting is being held in compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act and is open to the media and public. Notices were duly posted, and the meeting was advertised in the Courier News and Star Ledger. Formal action may be taken. Can we have a roll call, please?
Ray Egbert. Here. Carol Hampel.
Here.
Ron McCallan.
Here.
Alan Bogorski. Carolyn Bogorski.
Here.
Andrew Saunders. Thomas Wallace.
Here.
Eric Zerling.
Here.
Anna Shin.
Here.
I see Laura Simon is absent.
Can we please stand for the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We begin the night with our superintendent's report. Dr. Hart?
Thank you, Mrs. Shin. Welcome, everyone, to our Board of Education meeting. Tonight, as you see on the agenda, I have a presentation to review our plans for reopening schools in September. I'm going to start my presentation in just a moment. So thank you, everyone, for being here. Just a quick reminder, as there's a lot of folks on the call tonight, If you could just please ensure that your phone and your computer are on mute. And remember, when I present and as I'm presenting, I'm able to see my screen and the presentation, but I'm not able to see you. So as I present, you just please be aware of that. So once again, just double check and make sure your phone or your computer is on silent or on mute. Thank you. Let me bring up the presentation. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. All right, so this evening, we're going to review a presentation titled Reddington Ready, Our Reopening Plan for Schools, and this is going to walk us through the plans that we have developed for school reopening come September. So the Department of Education published a document back in late June called the Road Back, Restart and Recovery Plan for Education. This Road Back document is the DOE guidance document that has provided us with our road map for reopening. Please recognize that our road back to recovery after in the midst of a global pandemic is likely going to be a windy road that needs some adjustment along the way, and there's likely going to be some twists and turns. But know that we have a really great start to a plan for reopening schools in September. So this presentation will go through some of our planning protocols and our guiding principles, the general schedule for what the fall will hold, health and safety measures, wellness, instruction, transportation, technology and access to technology, and training and education. So our planning started actually back in June before the school year ended and even before we had the guidance document from the Department of Education. What we did back in June was we called together staff and administration to create a task force. Before we even had our guidance document, the task force of staff and administration began by imagining what reopening might look like and all of the considerations we would need to think about in order to reopen schools safely come September. Late June, we got our guidance document, like I told you, from the Department of Education, and we developed a restart committee, which met twice over the course of 2 mornings in July to discuss reopening schools. This committee was comprised of staff, board members, parents, and administration. There were some parents who wanted to offer their thoughts and opinions that were part of a focus group. There were students who we asked to be part of a focus group to get some of their ideas. We had a Board of Education meeting last week, and we've had committee meetings throughout the month of July. And of course, we've been continuing our communication with the Hunterdon County Department of Health, and I've been in contact with our partners throughout the sending region with the other superintendents. As we developed our plan, we worked in groups into 5 subcategories. Those groups really thought about factors and considerations for each of these 5 areas: facilities and transportation, governance and operations, instruction, technology, and wellness. So these 5 subcategories used our resources to make some plans using 3 scenarios. When we began planning, we weren't quite sure what reopening scenario we would be faced with come September. So we had these 5 subgroups imagine what it would look like in each of these categories for a virtual opening, a traditional opening but with restrictions, which would be a traditional full capacity opening, and then a hybrid opening, some sort of limited capacity opening, of course with restrictions. Know that the Department of Education guidance document provides for schools to reopen in-person instruction in some capacity for September. That led the virtual option, not one that we explored in great detail, but we definitely have a virtual plan if need be. We know that the traditional opening is not going to be possible based off of the 6-foot social distancing requirements that are in the Department of Ed guidance document. Therefore, we're focused our attention over the past several weeks over reopening with a limited capacity as a hybrid model. So our guiding principles, our thoughts really were one overarching principle, of course, with 4 sub-principles. The overarching principle is to provide for the health and safety of our staff and students while implementing a cohesive, consistent educational program. And I want to point that out to everyone because it's really critically important that we remember, of course, health and safety come first, but we're also trying to balance the health and safety needs of our staff and students with also a cohesive, consistent, strong educational program. So as we're looking at reopening schools in a relatively unorthodox way, we still have to remember to balance health and safety with our instructional program and our consistent educational program. So our sub-principles, some of our guiding principles for health and safety were reducing crowds and close contact, reducing the mixing of students, monitoring for the prevalence of symptoms and spread in the schools and community, sanitizing, disinfecting, and enhancing our cleaning protocols. So as we take our journey down this road back, our road to restarting schools, our first turn is our school calendar and our schedule. So I want to point out that the school calendar will remain largely unchanged for the 2020-21 school year. There will be 2 teacher in service days on September 1st and 2nd. The first days for students will be on September 3rd and 4th. These first 2 days back will be early dismissal days for students. The early dismissal days will allow for an adjustment period to the schedule that we'll talk about in a couple of moments. The afternoons will be used for meetings for the teachers, as well as assisting students who may choose for the fully virtual option, which was presented by the governor last week. There may be students who opt for that, so we thought we would build some time into the first couple of days of school to allow teachers to have meetings with those students or a group meeting with those students. We also are going to propose that September 3rd and 4th are going to be in person only for students, and that students who are going to be virtual will have some kind of pre-recorded videos or some other activities that will be posted in their Google Classroom. So the general schedule we propose looks like this. Students will be divided into 2 cohorts by family last name, and the cohorts we're identifying as A and B. Cohort A will attend school in person on Mondays and Tuesdays, while Cohort B will attend school remotely. Cohort B will then attend person in school on Thursdays and Fridays, while Cohort A will attend school remotely. Wednesdays will be reserved for early dismissal schedule, but fully remote for all staff and students. So it'll be a condensed schedule with just instruction in the morning, fully remote for all students and all staff. There will be some exceptions. I'll go over the calendar for September and outline those exceptions in just a moment. Remote instruction will occur, like I said, during early dismissal times in the morning on Wednesdays. Afternoons will be used for meetings, professional development, and other check-ins with students who are going to perhaps opt for that fully virtual option that we have. By this coming Friday, our intention is to let families know whether or not your child is in Cohort A or Cohort B. There's generally, and it's a rough general rule, that we divided students into cohorts A and B by alphabet. It's not a rule. There are certainly exceptions, so please don't assume if your last name starts with the letter A, you're in Cohort A, because there are going to be some exceptions. I want everybody to know that if we divide the alphabet from A through L and M through Z, we don't come up with a 50-50 split. In order to get more of a 50-50 split, we had to hand schedule certain families. Also know that our cohorts A and B may very well align with the high school. So if you do have another child at the high school, we'd like you to know that, we're hopeful that it aligns, and if it doesn't, contact us in the high school and we'll do what we can to see if we can try to work out alignment between us and the high school if need be. So by Friday, look for cohort A and B announcements. So our rationale for the schedule: we want to limit the number of students in the buildings so that we can provide for the required social distancing parameters that are in the Department of Education document, and we can support contact tracing from the Department of Health if we need to do contact tracing based off of the Department of Health. Wednesday, fully remote option allows teachers to pull small groups and have check-ins and even have office hours for all learners, but really to allow them some time to focus on learners that may be fully remote. Teachers may also have additional professional development time or planning on Wednesday afternoons. September 3rd and 4th. So I mentioned a couple of slides ago that the first 2 days back are going to be in-person days only. There will not be a virtual component on these days, with one exception. The morning of September 3rd, Cohort A students will attend school in person. There will be no virtual instruction for Cohort B. Rather, they'll have activities that will be assigned through Google Classroom. In the afternoon, those students who opt for the fully virtual option, there will be a meeting in the afternoon with the teacher for those particular students. So if you can envision it, September 3rd, Cohort A comes, they attend in person. There will be no virtual component that day for Cohort B. They'll just go online and have activities to complete. And then on September 4th, it switches. We're reserving the afternoons only for students who are opting to be virtual and will not come to our buildings at all on any days, so the teacher can meet with those individuals. Here's September's schedule. So I mapped out September 1st through October 2nd, you'll see, and I mapped out A days and B days. A couple of things to point out. Notice that, remember, A's are Monday, Tuesday, B days are Thursday, Friday. There are a couple of exceptions. Notice that the first 2 days of school, in an effort to try to get A and B students in on Thursday and Friday before we leave for Labor Day weekend, we have an A day and then a B day. And then notice that after Labor Day, because Labor Day removes 1 day of in-person instruction for our A day students, we moved A day to be made up on Wednesday instead of a virtual day. So in instances where there may be a holiday, on a Monday or a Friday or in the middle of the week, we're proposing to use that Wednesday virtual day, if we need to, as a makeup day for in-person instruction. When it comes to scheduling, we considered equity in special populations. Students with IEPs that receive their program in a fully self-contained classroom will attend school 4 days out of the week. So as opposed to being on an A-B schedule, students who have an IEP and are fully self-contained, meaning they are in our autism program, our LLD program, our life skills program, or our preschool program, they'll have 4-day weeks with us fully in person. They will also have virtual sessions on Wednesday. Similarly, students in our ESL program will attend school 4 days a week and have virtual sessions on Wednesdays. Parents of eligible children for these programs will be notified if their child is eligible for this 4-day-a-week program from the Pupil Services Office. So look for that coming soon. Now I'm going to move into health and safety measures. We're going to first talk about general wellness. So if we envision a student day, the first part that we are going to require parents to do is a parental assurance of a temperature check and wellness prior to getting on the school bus or driving your children to school through our online system. This assurance will comprise of recommended questions from the CDC, as well as a mandated temperature check that parents will have to administer to their children prior to their children getting on the school bus or being dropped off at school. The CDC has a form that we are able to take and put into our online Genesis system or create a Google form. Right now, our administrative team is looking at doing this through Genesis because they have developed a page for us to be able to do this. And the data from Genesis will marry very easily with the attendance for the students for the day. There will also be an assurance for staff members that they would need to complete before arriving at work that day. When it comes to general wellness, second, is we are going to provide training for all staff, and we're going to be teaching all students regarding the signs and symptoms of COVID-19. This will allow for the visual inspection that appears in the NJDOE restart document to occur when students arrive. In other words, we all have to be really well in tune to signs and symptoms of illness in order to identify a potential individual, staff, or student that may be showing signs or symptoms of COVID so that we can respond swiftly and appropriately to any potential illness that we see in our school buildings when staff and students are here in person. Random temperature checks at school will occur, and or follow-up for those parents who have not submitted the assurance prior to the start of school. So if we don't get that assurance document, let's say by 8 o'clock in the morning at the primary buildings, and we notice that the child is likely coming to school that day, we will have someone posted at a door where that student enters to ensure that we check the student's temperature prior to them arriving in the building. We'll have hand sanitizer throughout our school buildings and in hallways and in each classroom. We've purchased hand sanitizer machines to go on the walls for a sanitation station. We have purchased hand sanitizer to hang on those kind of portable stands for entrances to school buildings. And we also have hand sanitizer that will be in each classroom. We were going to build hand washing into schedules to ensure that our students wash hands upon arrival and or get hand sanitizer before and after lunch, before they leave for the day, and at other periods throughout the school day. Many of our classrooms, particularly in the elementary buildings, have sinks where hand washing can happen periodically throughout the day. We're also convening a pandemic response team at each building. We have already our safety teams, our emergency response teams, in other words, at each building. They'll be responsible for the oversight and implementation of our restart and recovery plan. Health and safety, masks and barriers. So face masks and barriers. First, let's talk about face coverings. Masks will be required for all staff and visitors during the school day unless it inhibits an individual's health. So masks will be worn by all staff and all visitors, all adults that are in the school building. Similarly, masks are also going to be required for students in all settings except when instructed by a teacher. There is some flexibility in cases where the mask wearing inhibits a student's health, but our rule at school is going to be, if you're at school, you're wearing a mask, unless an adult tells you that you can take a mask break. Think of it, I think one of our board colleagues said, think of it like flying on an airplane, when you assume that you're always wearing your seatbelt until the captain tells you, turns off the seatbelt sign and tells you you can move about the cabin. What we're doing is we're requiring masks for everyone unless students are instructed to take a break. We're purchasing plexiglass barriers for high traffic areas like main offices and nurses' offices. We are also purchasing those barriers for contact areas in small spaces like therapy rooms, the school counselor's office, and intervention classrooms. We also have some barriers that also exist in classrooms. Special education classrooms and other classrooms already have a barrier that could potentially divide students and or staff. We have purchased face shields if staff wish to use them, and this could be an added layer of protection. In addition to these things, Mr. Bohm, the business administrator, and I have also talked about ordering N95 masks. We, I think, have them on order. And we also just today from the Department of Health received the list of PPE that should be provided for our healthcare professionals, like our school nurses in the building. So we're going to put in orders for those supplies also. Remember that 6 feet distances, masks, barriers are the best protections against the spread of the virus. Reducing crowds and close contact. So in each building, so as children arrive or when they dismiss, we'll have various entry and departure points at arrival and dismissal. In the past, you might remember that all students being picked up or dropped off by a parent would enter in one door, and students that were driven via bus vehicle would enter another. That's going to still happen. However, we may have students from the bus vehicles entering maybe at 2 or 3 different doors throughout the building, so that we're reducing the amount of students that are entering at one entry point. We are marking hallways for 1-foot traffic if possible, and also marking hallways so students can see a visual of what it looks like to maintain 6-foot social distancing. There's going to be a reduced number of students in the cafeteria for lunch. Think about it, we're bringing in half of our student population on any given day. Also subtract the students that may opt for a fully remote option. Then we've taken grade levels and taken classrooms and even further divided them to the point where we are looking at putting perhaps anywhere between 30 to 40 kids in the cafeteria at any given time. So we really have a reduced crowd in the cafeteria. PE classes will be held outside as much as possible. Locker rooms will be closed. Students must be prepared for gym class with appropriate clothing and sneakers on days that they have gym. We know, unfortunately, instructionally, we're going to have less cooperative learning opportunities or group work. We're not going to be sharing materials, and if shared materials need to be shared, they must be cleaned in between as per the guidance from the DOE. Facilities and cleaning. We're going to enhance our cleaning protocols, including scheduling times for hand washing by staff and students. I mentioned this before, entry into the building, re-entry to classrooms from bathrooms before and after lunch or recess, and other times throughout the school day. We'll concentrate our cleaning in areas of congregation, as well as commonly touched surfaces. Soap, hand sanitizing gel, disinfecting wipes, and spray bottles will be provided throughout the district to each teacher in each classroom. We have purchased electrostatic disinfectant spray cleaners to be used on a daily basis after dismissal in key areas, primarily surfaces. We've designed our bus routes, our lunch schedule, and recess schedule to accommodate cleaning in between different groups of students being in those rooms. We have one custodian at each building. At RMS, we have 2. We also have a floater custodian, and we have maintenance staff. We are taking our 1 custodian. We will be adding a maintenance staff member to each building, so there will be at least 2 in each building. At RMS, there will be 3 to ensure that we have maintenance and cleaning staff there. We're adjusting the schedule with our evening cleaning staff, Pritchard, to assist in cleaning during the daytime. So we're adding a shift so that we have our evening personnel coming in earlier in the day. Our HVAC system is going to be adjusted. Our HVAC systems require that we bring in a certain degree of outside air. We're going to adjust them to ensure that we bring in more outside air for better airflow in the buildings. We're trying to increase the amount of passive airflow by opening windows and opening doors. Opening doors also helps so that students and staff don't have to touch doorknobs throughout their day, and that increases passive airflow. We're also investigating classrooms that have vents that blow across the classroom rather than up and down, and we are looking at purchasing diverters so that the air can blow down or straight up rather than across surfaces. We don't want air going across surfaces so that there could be risk of aerosols being carried throughout the room. This is a sample of a classroom over at Hollenbrook. So you'll see that this is just a sample. It's been set up with 12 desks, all spaced 6 feet apart. There's a teacher area in the front outlined with the red line, which provides a distance from the teacher to be 6 feet away from the first student desk. Her smartboard is there behind that line, her teacher desk, as well as a small group instruction table up in the corner is there. The sink is in the back. Here's what some pictures of the cafeteria look like. Notice that we're going to have one-way foot traffic. There's an exit-only door up in the top left-hand corner. 3 students at every long table, 2 students at the circular tables. And you'll see that we have them represented with a red dot, 6 feet apart. It just gives you a little bit of a visual. So this is where we can clearly show the reduction in the amount of students that are in a very large space in our cafeteria. Moving on to wellness. The Department of Education guidance document recognizes that attention to physical and social emotional wellness for students, staff, and parents, along with school climate and culture, is critical in a student's academic success, especially in this very difficult time. You know, as a district, we deeply value social emotional learning, and the DOE supports this. what we are doing is we are developing an SEL framework that can be integrated into our hybrid model. So we are developing practices, strategies, tools, and supports into the daily academic curricula on our hybrid learning days. We're going to focus on self-care, resilience, self-management, social awareness, and diversity, as well as relationship building and how this can be applied not only in school, but also in the home. And we have parts of our plan that address educator well-being, student well-being, and parent and guardian well-being. Moving on to instructional delivery. So parents follow along a little bit with me. So this is a little bit of theory, some educational theory here. This is Pearson's gradual release of responsibility model. If you start over on the left-hand side, we see that modeling is a critical component of teaching in everyday practice. There's a high level of teacher support, and this is where you would imagine a teacher is either doing direct instruction or a mini lesson. This is where the teacher is giving instructions for the day. This is also where the teachers are outlining expectations for the day or modeling a skill or a strategy. Moving across the chart, the second box is guided, isolated, and contextualized practice. So as the teacher, after she models a skill or a strategy, then the goal is in typical instruction, what she would be doing is the teacher would then be guiding the student through the practice of applying that strategy or skill. And she would be doing this in a small guided reading group or one-on-one conference in reading or writing class, or assisting with a small group with math problems, something along those lines. And then finally, on the right-hand side, we have independent practice, where the child is really doing work on his or her own. The teacher is just simply monitoring or collecting the assignment, and the child is doing it really by himself. So moving back, if you see my notes in red, the modeling portion of lessons, the beginning portion of every lesson where strategies and skills are modeled, are really ripe for an opportunity for all students to receive that instruction synchronously. And in a couple of minutes, we have Mr. Belsky on the call, and he'll show you how this can be done in the classroom using the technology that we have. All students can get this. So I'll show you a schedule in a couple of moments, but our instructional schedule has been designed in a way where students who are at home will be logging in on a Google Meet or a Zoom Meet to their classroom in order to see the live direct instruction that's happening there for certain periods throughout the day. After that live instruction is over, the students who are in class on a day, let's say, will receive some in-person guidance from the teacher, and she'll be able to monitor them in person, while students who are at home on that day, the B day students, will have an independent assignment in their Google Classroom. So our intent is to return to in-person learning at a safe point during the school year. However, we're going to continue moving forward with hybrid. Our instruction will be aligned to the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. Students at home will follow the same class schedule as students in school, but the students at home will be logging in for their periods of instruction daily, and that schedule will be developed with the building principals and the teacher. Student attendance will be counted as long as the student is logged in to their class sessions for the day. Otherwise, the student is counted as absent. Remote learning will also include independent learning activities. So here's a sample schedule. So you'll notice in the left-hand column, there's a list of different subjects that a student experiences throughout the academic day. In the middle column, this is what the learning experiences are going to be for the students that are sitting in the classroom during the day. And then in the far right-hand column are the students at home doing virtual learning. So the way we're designing our instructional delivery schedule is the blue boxes represent synchronous learning that will happen simultaneously at home and at school. The in-person students will be sitting in the classroom in front of the teacher, getting the direct instruction, that modeling that I just mentioned a couple of slides ago, whereas the student at home will be also logged in to a Google Classroom or a Zoom meeting to get that same modeling. Any area in white is going to be in-person instruction or guided instruction from the teacher for those in-person students. Any area in white for the at-home students will be independent activities that will be done through Google Classroom. So if I'm a third grade student in this classroom, I know that every day I need to be logged in at 8:30 for my lesson, at 9:30 for another lesson, and then again at 1:45, and then again at 2:30. So there is going to be some synchronous learning as well as asynchronous learning built in. One of the lessons that we learned from the spring of last year was that a good, consistent schedule daily for students is really important, alongside live instruction for students who are learning from home. I want to mention transportation. We're designing our bus routes to minimize students on busing and balance the needs of parents who are going to require transportation. So the AB schedule greatly reduces the number of students on each bus route. If any parent opts to not have their child take the bus, those waivers could further reduce capacity. We'll also be identifying families who are going to choose 100% remote learning. We'll encourage alternative means of transportation like walking or biking only when it's safe and appropriate. And right now the Board of Education is going to continue with courtesy busing as we've planned, but this is another option we can look into if buses become too crowded, and we want to have as much distance and as few students on buses as possible. On buses, students will have face coverings. They'll be required to wear them. They'll have hand sanitizer upon entry to the vehicle. There will be assigned seating. Students will sit with family members from the same household when feasible, and we'll be loading buses from the rear to the front. We'll have protective equipment and enhanced precautions for the bus drivers. We will clean and disinfect the buses between routes with the electrostatic cleaners, and we'll have some modified dismissal and arrival protocols to ensure that we balance the crowding that happens when we dismiss students or have them board buses. Technology. We're going to be giving Chromebooks to all students grades K through 8. All teachers have laptops with video cameras, and we are purchasing Bluetooth headsets for all teachers. Classrooms will have interactive whiteboards that can be presented to remote learners. We've looked at our network bandwidth, and we recognize that we're going to be using a lot more video streaming, but we believe that our bandwidth is perfectly capable of handling that amount of traffic. But we will continue to monitor and do the best we can, and we would have the capability to increase it if need be. Any parent or student that's having technical issues from home should email tech support. This is really important because teachers will be responsible for teaching students who are in person in front of them for the day, and we recognize that there will also be students at home. Those students at home can't be emailing the teacher for technical assistance because the teacher is going to be doing some in-class instruction. So we're asking you to email tech support, and we're looking at having our technology department be housed one individual in each building to ensure that we have someone who can answer any tech support questions at each one of our schools. Training and education. Additional summer training will include technology tools and platforms for hybrid classroom and live instructions. We have new Epson iProjects in the middle school. That training will occur on September 1st and 2nd. We also have integrated some other professional development for the staff on September 1st and 2nd in order to accommodate our hybrid learning model. All staff and students are going to need COVID training to ensure that they recognize signs and symptoms, understand our policies and procedures, our PPE. Parents, we're developing a website of resources for families, and we're also looking at doing some virtual training for parents so that parents can better understand our virtual learning tools. At the end of August, we're also doing substitute training, and we'll include the remote and hybrid instruction in our substitute training as well as COVID-related information. So we have a extensive training outline for the end of August and beginning of September. Kindergarten and grade 1. So we recognize our youngest students and their parents may need some additional support. These are our youngest students that aren't as familiar with some of the technologies.